Information technology, or the transfer of electric data, used to belong only to the government, but it has gone to the hands of everyone, including your 5-year-old cousin with his dirty Cheeto fingers. Those little computers that you bring everywhere to talk to your mom, to order Timmy's, or to buy yourself a new coffee maker for your home. It is difficult to imagine life without it, as it has intertwined with our lives so much. It may seem like sunshine and rainbows, but what if I tell you that it is weakening our democratic system?
Over the last 10 to 15 years, there has been a strong swing towards the authoritarian style of governing. According to the Global State of Democracy Report 2021, released by the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, the number of countries moving towards authoritarianism in 2020 was higher than those going towards democracy. It was the worst year on record. Countries like Thailand, Saudi Arabia, and China have used social media to censor content that criticizes the government, often persecuting those who raise their voice. For example, China is infamously known for controlling access to the information that citizens can see on the internet. China's largest social media platform, WeChat, with over 1 billion active users, is closely tied to the Chinese government, despite being a publicly traded company too. Its user data is tracked, analyzed, and shared with Chinese authorities, and there has been research done by the University of Toronto that confirms that they do apply censorship to all data that's shared through the app, quietly removing anything that it doesn't want people to see. Beyond social media, China also conducts extensive surveillance in the physical world by investing heavily in facial recognition software that it uses to process footage from millions of security cameras in public spaces, which is used to target dissenting individuals. Similar technology is now being used in democratic countries as well. One example being that the New York Police Department now also uses facial recognition technology in their policing.
With this level of control over the information technology that people use in their daily lives, it makes it extremely difficult for dissenting opinions to be seen and heard by the general public. One can say that these things only happen in authoritarian governments, but there's a growth in the amount of surveillance by digital platform owners and the government through implicit surveillance methods, such as data gathering through applications, posing a threat to democracy. Due to an ease of access, individuals are able to see the political flaws that exist in the current democracy, thus driving people towards extreme authoritarian viewpoints which influence their way of thinking. With an increase of these non-democratic views, it leads to the government adopting authoritarian methods, such as restricting free speech, to prevent further dissemination of those views. The gathering and spreading of information can pose a threat to the current democracy, and in that transfer of information, social media and fake news plays a huge role.
When only traditional media outlets existed, information was centralized and regulated. But that is no longer the case with new and social media, which allow people to share ideas that could potentially reach millions of audiences without the burden of regulation and censorship. This enabled previously fringe views to gain attention and support from the online community and gave rise to populism. Many populist leaders managed to gain support from ordinary people by giving them a voice over their frustrations. They do so by capitalizing on the growing sense of us versus them. You may be surprised that populist Facebook posts that contain far-right or extreme viewpoints trigger almost 3,000 more reactions and 500 more shares and comments than mainstream political posts that debate about the environment or education. The main reason for these widespread polarizing posts lies within Facebook's own algorithm. The truth is, Facebook loves engagement. The longer they keep you on the platform, the more money they make. When Facebook learned that humans are more attracted to emotional and provocative content, they capitalized on this by ranking emoji reacts as 5 times more valuable than a simple like. Therefore, contents that induce anger and hatred can reach a wider audience a lot faster. And guess who this benefits? The populist and extremist communities. With algorithms designed to surround users with contents that support their opinions and people who agree with them, users tend to grow deeper into their existing beliefs and refuse to be challenged by opposing thoughts. Therefore, society becomes more polarized.
IT giants like Facebook and Google refuse to acknowledge how much their platforms affect our lives. After the January 6th riot on Capitol Hill that killed 5 people, Amazon and Apple deplatformed Parler, a social media service favored by the alt-right, while Facebook and Twitter banned the sitting US president off their platforms due to his support of the deadly insurrectionists. The result? Online misinformation about election fraud dropped 75% across multiple platforms, just showing the sheer power of information technology and how a few small clicks of a button from an executive at these companies can completely silence a large audience. If these companies have the power to regulate their content, why don't they? The simple answer, they don't care. There currently exists little government law or regulations to restrict these big IT companies. Facebook saw a total of 2.17 billion monthly users in January of 2018, which is almost a third of the human population. With no competition threatening their user platform, if creating a public divide gives them billions of users in revenue, why should they stop if no one is forcing them to?
In addition, social media has been noted to sway the perception the general public has on politicians. Quick infographics are often shared within circles to criticize and slander politicians and their policies. Due to the fast pace of social media, users often don't fact-check exaggerated or even fake information before integrating it into their beliefs. Information technology has also grown far quicker than most democratic governments can keep up with. This has resulted in politicians not being able to be safe while using such technologies. This can be seen with Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential election when her emails were leaked to the general public, thus resulting in a decline in her reputation and trustworthiness. This lack of knowledge in information technology has also resulted in people losing faith in their political representatives, as oftentimes the general public feels as though the governing bodies are not upholding the responsibility of protecting the voters' rights, freedoms, and securities online.
Furthermore, voting technologies have developed in parallel with advances in information technology. Nowadays, a lot of technology-enabled voting equipment is contracted by private sector companies, which raises the issue of partiality due to their own vested interests. According to a 2008 paper published in the peer-reviewed academic Journal of Politics, Are Americans Confident Their Ballots Are Counted? The authors argue that skepticism towards electronic voting might stem from the fact that voters do not trust this black box nature of electronic voting. They cannot grasp the idea of electronics, just like how your parents expect you to remember their every password or fix every little issue they have with their phone. This distrust of technology-enabled voting systems may be either caused or amplified by false claims by partisan political leaders, extensive disinformation spread via social media, and abundant negative media reports regarding the susceptibility of voting technologies to tampering, failure, or fraud. In fact, the aforementioned Global State of Democracy Report 2021 highlighted that electoral integrity is increasingly being questioned, often without any evidence, even in established democracies. The former US President Donald Trump's baseless allegations during the 2020 US presidential election have had spillover effects, including in Brazil, Mexico, Myanmar, and Peru, among others. This leads to a decline of public confidence in the integrity of elections, even when there is no voter fraud, resulting in reduced voter turnout in future elections, shaking the bedrock of democracy itself.
So, to recap, information technology does not strengthen the democratic system in developed countries. Democratic governments are starting to swing to authoritarianism due to the lack of accountability on the information available to the public and the surveillance that occurs on the internet by the government. You should say hi to the FBI agent behind your laptop camera because you never know, he might just be right there. Publicly traded companies like Facebook, Google, or Twitter's sole purpose is profit and advertising, who gives you content that has been aggregated algorithmically. If you watch cute dog videos, they will keep feeding you cute dog videos. Imagine that, but with politics. You constantly get the same belief and be more polarized. Information technology that is supposed to make our lives easier, like trying to get directions to your yoga class or buying groceries online, also makes us skeptical about our country's democracy. The amount of false information or fake news that spreads on the internet like wildfire causes distrust in the democratic system. Unfortunately, without any drastic changes in the architecture or stricter regulation in information technology, we will just have to continue to watch as our democracy diminishes.